Hey night owls, you're here again. That probably means you're like me, drawn to the dark, the forgotten, and the kind of stories that don't let you sleep easily. But tonight, we're doing something different. Tonight's tale doesn't start in some haunted forest or a creaky Victorian mansion. It begins somewhere closer, familiar even, a party. Not a demonic ritual or cursed gathering, just a bunch of young people, dancing, drinking, filming each other on their phones, pretending the world wasn't as broken as it actually is. But sometimes, the worst horror stories wear the mask of normalcy until that mask slips. So before we drift into this tale, do me a favor. If you genuinely enjoy the stories I share, the kind that stay with you long after the screen goes dark, like this video, subscribe to Clara After Dark, and leave a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I love knowing who's out there in the night with me. Alright, get comfortable, dim your lights, and let the night take over. Because what you're about to hear is based on something that happened not 50 years ago, not last summer. This one, it happened today, and you just might have scrolled past the headline without realizing what it really meant. Now, close your eyes if you're brave, and picture this. The dock creaked under the weight of too many shoes. A party boat, anchored beside a quiet South Carolina shore, rocked gently in the water. The music wasn't too loud, not yet. Someone had brought those neon glow sticks. A few beer bottles clinked at the edge of the deck, and overhead, the full moon made everything feel like it was happening in slow motion. 18, maybe 20 guests. College kids, mostly. Someone's cousin had rented the boat for his birthday. Nobody knew everyone. Just fragments of friend groups smashed together into one floating mess. That's what made it perfect. No history, no pressure. Just music and drinks and strangers with pretty smiles. Somewhere below deck, someone was already throwing up. A girl laughed too loudly at nothing. A couple snuck away to the far end of the dock to kiss like they were the only ones alive. And then, around 11:43 p.m., a single pop sliced through the chatter, sharp, metallic, and out of place. Most people didn't even notice. Then came the second, louder, closer, then another, and suddenly, the party wasn't a party anymore. It was a maze of screams, scrambling limbs, and the smell of blood. A birthday turned into a battlefield in less than 60 seconds. No one saw where the first bullet came from, but they all saw the blood. The girl in the pink hoodie collapsing onto the dock. The guy next to her stumbling backward with his hands drenched in red, like he couldn't believe what his own chest was doing. 10 people hit 10, and the water beneath the boat began to shimmer dark, no longer from the moonlight, but from something warmer, thicker. You ever wonder what it sounds like when a party dies? It's not music stopping. It's the sound of one person screaming too late, and another whispering a name that doesn't answer back. This is how it began. And in the next part, we'll talk about what didn't make it into the news. Because not everything that bleeds dies. Sometimes, it stays behind. The boat, named the Silver Current, had been tied to the dock behind a vacant seafood restaurant that hadn't opened since the pandemic. Local teens knew it as the perfect off-grid location, out of reach from neighbors who might call the cops. The dock groaned under the weight of bodies stepping onto it, the occasional thud of coolers and duffel bags breaking the silence of the marina. Red plastic cups were passed around like ritual goblets. Someone lit a bonfire in a rusted metal drum near the back gate, casting flickering shadows across the water. No one noticed the girl standing on the far end of the dock at first. She wasn't part of any group. Her pale skin looked powdered, as if untouched by sunlight. She wore a dress that didn't fit the current decade or century, but with so many people arriving in costumes or edgy thrift finds, no one gave her a second look. She just stood there, gazing at the boat, her long black hair unmoving despite the breeze. Inside the boat, the music had started. Bass thumped through thin walls, making plastic containers vibrate on the floor. Laughter erupted every few seconds. Phone cameras lit up the space in flashes. The party was officially on. It was close to midnight when things shifted. Someone tripped on a folded tarp and swore loudly. Just as the generator hiccuped, the lights flickered once, twice, then silence. The music stopped. The only sound was the distant lap of water and someone whispering. Was that planned? A guy in a flannel shirt pulled out his phone. No signal. Others tried to. Dead, all of them. A wave of unease swept through the crowd, like a collective shiver. Some laughed it off, calling it part of the thrill. Ew, spooky boat glitch, one girl mocked. But her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. Outside, the girl on the dock was gone. A thud echoed from the lower deck. Then another. Then, dragging, a sound like something heavy being pulled across metal. Someone screamed. Not a playful, party scream, but a raw human one. The kind that punches the air out of your lungs when you hear it. Everyone froze. The guy nearest the stairs stepped forward, peering down. What the hell is that? His words barely made it out before he staggered back, face pale, lips trembling. There's someone down there. But no one answered, because just then, the lights came back on, and half the people were missing. There were at least 20 people on the boat when the lights cut out. Now, only 10 remained. No splash, no footsteps, no doors creaking open. Just gone, vanished. Their drinks still sitting half finished. A phone still recording, lying face up on a bench. The screen showed a frozen frame of someone dancing, but that person was no longer there. Panic bloomed slowly, like smoke from a candle that had just been snuffed out. At first, people denied it. Maybe they moved to the dock. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe. But the silence outside told a different story. No footsteps on the planks. No laughter. Just water lapping gently, and that constant hum from the generator. A boy named Jordan, known for being the loud one at school, tried to open the cabin door to leave. It wouldn't budge. The knob spun uselessly in his hand. Others rushed to help, but the door held tight like it had fused to the frame. A girl near the back, Kayla, began crying. Not the kind of tears you wipe away. These ran down her cheeks in rivers, silent, relentless. Then the whispering started. It came from the walls, from the ceiling, from underneath the floorboards. Not words, exactly. More like a language no one recognized. Wet, ragged, like someone speaking underwater, or trying to. The air turned thick, hard to breathe, like the oxygen itself had gone stale. Jordan turned, looking toward the small hallway that led to the lower deck. I'm going down there, he said, his voice shaking but trying to sound brave. No one stopped him, not because they were brave, but because they didn't want to be next. He disappeared down the narrow steps, flashlight from his phone cutting a weak beam into the dark. 10 seconds passed, 20, then came the scream, high, sharp, then silence. Nothing but the gentle hum of the boat swaying. The flashlight flickered once at the bottom of the stairs, then went dark. Kayla started praying, whispering fragments of verses she barely remembered. Someone else was calling their mom, even though the phones still had no service. That's when they noticed the windows. They were blacked out, not covered, not painted. Just black, like there was no world outside anymore. Just emptiness, just water. But the boat wasn't moving. It was docked. It should be docked. But when they pressed their faces to the glass, they saw nothing. No dock, no lights, no city, just a vast ink-black ocean stretching forever. That's when someone finally said it. We're not in Charleston anymore. And then, as if to confirm it, the boat shifted. Just slightly, a creak of wood, a tug of current, and far below, something knocked once, then twice, then it started climbing. The knocking didn't sound like wood on wood. It was wet, heavy, like a fist made of water and bone. It echoed up through the boat's hull, like it knew exactly where they were hiding. Someone screamed, not from pain, from something worse. Recognition? A guy near the corner named Miguel backed away from the center of the cabin. I saw it. I saw that thing last summer, in the marshes, near Folly Beach. Everyone turned to him. I thought I was tripping. I never told anyone. but I swear, it had no face, just holes, like it had been hollowed out. It followed me for hours, but it never touched me, just watched. They didn't believe him, but they also didn't not believe him, because how else could you explain the shadows under the floor growing longer, stretching like they had weight and will? Someone tried the emergency radio. Static. Another checked the life jackets. Gone. All of them. The box that held them was still there, lid open, but empty, like they'd never existed. Kayla whispered, "Do you think we're dead?" No one answered, because what kind of death feels like this? What kind of death knocks? Then, the lights flickered once, then again, then total black. Screams broke the silence. Someone knocked over a glass. It shattered. Someone else slipped and fell. A phone screen lit up the room. Just a dim glow, enough to see shapes, movement, but not detail. That was when they saw the figure. In the center of the cabin, not standing, floating. Its body was thin, like driftwood tied together by seaweed. No face, just darkness. Eyes that looked like they'd been carved out, still oozing something dark. Its mouth wide, hollow. It didn't move. It didn't speak. It watched. And the moment they looked at it, really looked, something happened to the air. It got thicker, harder, like every breath was a chore. One by one, they dropped to their knees. Not out of reverence, out of pressure. Like the boat was sinking under invisible weight. Miguel was the first to stand back up. He faced it and spoke, but it wasn't in English. It wasn't even human. The sounds came out of his mouth like bubbles from a deep sea. Diver, guttural, ancient, like something being remembered by a body that never belonged to him. The creature tilted its head and then smiled, but it didn't have lips. It just opened, and the inside was filled with teeth, rows of them, all facing inward. Kayla screamed, not because of the thing, but because Miguel didn't stop. He kept speaking in that language. That wet language, like his throat had forgotten how to be human. His eyes rolled back. His skin was sweating black, and whatever he was saying, the creature understood. The cabin trembled, not from outside. From within, one of the walls cracked, like something on the other side wanted in. Or maybe it was already there, trying to get out. Jules tried to grab Miguel, to shake him out of it. But the moment her fingers touched his shoulder, she jolted back like she'd been shocked. Her fingertips were steaming, burned. "Miguel, stop," someone begged. But his mouth was no longer shaped for English or mercy. And then the creature moved, not like a person, more like smoke curling in reverse. Its limbs didn't bend. They shifted, like they'd been borrowed from something that crawled on the ocean floor. It floated toward Miguel, and still, he spoke. The lights flickered again, just once, but that was enough for them to see it wasn't alone anymore. In the far corner, by the emergency hatch, another shape, smaller, then another, by the kitchen, then another, by the bathroom door. They weren't moving, just watching, all with that same hollow, open mouth. No sound, just presence. Kayla grabbed the flare gun from under the sink. She didn't think, she just fired. The red flare exploded against the ceiling. Light flooded the room. The creatures hissed, not from pain, from surprise, like they'd been caught mid-thought. They didn't run. They didn't vanish. They just blinked, like lights, gone, just like that. Miguel collapsed, his mouth still twitching with half-spoken syllables. Blood trickled from his ears. The flare sizzled on the floor, burning out, and with it, the light. Silence returned, thicker now, like it liked what it heard. No one moved, not even Kayla, because for the first time since it all began, they realized the truth. The knocking hadn't come from outside. It had been echoing upward, from the water below them. The generator kicked back in with a wheeze. Weak lights buzzed overhead, not warm, not comforting, just enough to show the wreckage. Miguel was breathing, barely. His skin was pale, almost translucent, like something had drained the color out of him from the inside. His lips kept moving, but no sound came out. Jules held his hand, whispering something, a prayer, maybe, or a memory, just to keep him tethered. Kayla stared at the spot where the flare had burned. The scorch mark was there. The wall was blackened, but no sign of the creatures. Not even a trace. No soot, no smear, like they'd never been real, except for the blood in Miguel's ears, and the burn on Jules' fingertips. And the echo, it hadn't stopped. It was low now, throbbing, like a slow heartbeat under their feet. Not the boat, not the engine, something deeper. Kayla looked at the others. We need to go. To where? Jules asked. We're docked. Exactly, Kayla said. Let's get off this thing. They moved carefully, like every creak of the floorboards might call something back. The dock outside was still. No breeze, no crickets. Just silence. Too much silence. Jules helped Miguel up. He staggered, leaning heavily on her shoulder. The moment his foot touched the dock, he froze, then whispered, Don't. What? Don't step on the dock. But it was too late. Kayla had already stepped forward, and the wood under her foot shivered. Not from her weight, from underneath. The sound was soft, like a sigh in reverse, but it rippled across the dock. Planks creaked in a wave. Something below them was moving. Kayla jumped back, but the second her foot left the wood, it responded. A hand, thin-webbed, gray as drowned paper. It reached up from the gap between the planks. Then another, then another. Fingers groping, searching, but not blindly. They were reaching toward Miguel. Run, Kayla screamed. But Miguel didn't. He turned, faced the water, and whispered, I remember now. His voice was wrong, slurred, like someone underwater, trying to speak through a dream. They never left, he said. Jules grabbed his arm. We have to move. But he didn't budge. His feet were rooted, his eyes black now, wide, hollow, exactly like theirs. The hands reached higher, elbows bending now as if preparing to pull something up or pull someone down. Kayla's instincts roared. She lunged at Miguel, grabbing his collar, trying to yank him back. But his body was heavy, not physically, spiritually, like his soul had already sunk below the dock. Miguel, snap out of it. He didn't blink, didn't breathe, just whispered something low and indecipherable. Behind her, Jules was fumbling in her coat, shaking, cursing, then finally pulling out the one thing she had left, a flask. It wasn't holy water, just tequila, but desperate times. She didn't hesitate. She yanked off the cap, dipped her fingers inside, and flung the liquid directly at Miguel's face. It hit, and something sizzled. Miguel screamed, not in pain, not exactly. More like a trapped frequency was finally breaking. His knees buckled. He dropped to the dock, gasping. The hands disappeared. Just like that, gone. Kayla looked at Jules. What the hell was that? Jules was breathing hard. I don't know. But maybe spirits hate cheap liquor. Miguel sat up, blinking rapidly. Did I pass out? Kayla didn't answer, because in the distance, near the bow of the boat, came a sound. Footsteps, heavy, measured, wrong. They turned slowly. The gangplank groaned as something stepped off the boat onto the dock. Not something, someone, a man, tall, pale, wearing an old navy coat from another century. His eyes were solid black, not empty, like entire storms lived inside them. Kayla whispered, You see him too, right? Jules nodded slowly. Yeah, that's not security. The man walked slowly, deliberately. The dock made no sound under his feet. He stopped a few feet away, stared, then spoke. You woke them up. His voice was dry, brittle, like pages turning in a long-forgotten book. Miguel croaked, Who are you? The man tilted his head. I was the last survivor, until now. Then he pointed, not at Kayla, not at Jules, but at Miguel. They've chosen him. Kayla stepped between them. Back off. But the man didn't move. He didn't need to. The wind shifted, cold and thick, like it carried the breath of something vast and ancient. "Your time here is ending," the man whispered. "You brought blood, you brought noise. Now, they'll feed." Then he faded, not vanished. Faded, like a fog dissolving, leaving behind only silence, and the sense that nothing would ever be normal again. Silence pressed on them like a second skin. Jules was the first to break it. "We're leaving now." Miguel stood up shakily. "I think I saw something before I blacked out. A girl in a blue dress. She looked right at me, and she smiled." Kayla's face drained. What color was her hair? Blonde, long, wet. Jules swore under her breath. "That's her. That's the one people say died here years ago. The one who never got found. The cops claimed she just ran off. But the locals, they whisper she never left the dock." A siren sounded in the distance. Police? Maybe, but it felt late. Kayla grabbed her phone. Dead, of course. Jules checked hers. No signal. Again. They turned to leave the dock, but something had changed. The boat behind them was gone. Not just moved, gone. No splash, no motor, no sound. Just fog. Dense, crawling up from the water and swirling around their feet. Jules muttered, "This is bad. This is seriously bad." Then came the voices. Soft, echoing, like children whispering underwater. First on the left, then behind, then all around. Miguel backed into Kayla. "They're not letting us go." "No," Kayla said, her voice steady despite the terror. "But we're not staying." She grabbed a flare from a nearby emergency box, snapped it. The red light hissed to life, slicing through the mist. That's when they saw it. Dozens of them. Figures, some human-shaped, some not, watching from the edges of the fog. Pale hands, hollow eyes, feet that hovered inches above the wooden planks. One stepped forward. The girl Miguel saw. Blue dress, blonde hair, eyes full of longing, and teeth. Too many teeth. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Only a rush of cold that extinguished the flare. Darkness swallowed them. Kayla screamed, and then nothing. Not silence. Something worse. Stillness. Complete, total, wrong. When Kayla opened her eyes, it was morning. Bright, clear. She lay alone on the dock, the sun warming her face. The boat was back, moored neatly like it had never moved. No Jules, no Miguel, no fog, just the soft sound of water lapping against the posts. Kayla stood slowly. Her hands trembled. Her mouth tasted like salt and ash. Then, behind her, a whisper. So close, it tickled her ear. "You're next." She spun around. No one, but in the water, near the post, a reflection, a girl, blonde, blue dress, smiling. Kayla stumbled backward. She didn't scream this time, didn't cry, just stood there, breathing fast, frozen. The reflection was still there, still smiling, but there was no body to cast it. The water was calm. Sunlight danced on the surface. It should have been beautiful, but it felt like a trick. Kayla blinked once. The reflection blinked back, out of sync, and then it mouthed something. 3 words. "You know me." She turned and ran, sprinting down the dock, past the boat, past the picnic debris, until she hit gravel and grass and the distant sound of approaching sirens. Real ones this time. She didn't stop until her lungs burned and her legs nearly gave out. Later, surrounded by flashing lights and endless questions, she said only one thing. They were taken. Not missing, taken. The police didn't understand. They found no bodies, no signs of a struggle, just footprints leading to the edge of the dock, and then nothing. The story hit the news cycle hard for one day. Private party ends in tragedy. 2 young adults presumed drowned. 1 survivor found in shock. But no one dug deeper. No one cared about the whispers, except Clara, because the dock was quiet for years, until last night. Another party, Another group of young people, and guess what? This time, no survivors. Only echoes. And her, the girl in the blue dress, always smiling, always waiting. And maybe, just maybe, she's listening right now. Because these stories, they aren't just for the dead, they're warnings for the living. So tell me, night owl, are you safe where you are? Do you trust your reflection? Do you really know who's looking back? Or have they been watching you longer than you thought? You made it this far into the story. That means you're one of us now. So if you want more strange truths hidden in shadows, more tales they wish you'd forget, like the video. Only if it felt real. Only if it made your room feel just a little colder. Subscribe, because Clara's always here when the lights go out. And drop a comment. Tell me what time it is for you, and where you're watching from. It's always eerie to see how far the fog travels. And remember, the docks are never empty, just quiet for now. You probably think it's over, that stories like this have an end, but that's where most people get it wrong. Because things like this don't stop, they ripple. And sometimes, the quietest ripples go the farthest. 2 weeks after the dock incident, a man in Georgia woke up screaming. Neighbors said he lived alone, no family, no visitors. But he told paramedics something strange. He said there was a girl standing at the foot of his bed, smiling. He said she whispered something he couldn't understand. Something wet, like the sound of drowning. 2 days later, he jumped into a lake. No one could stop him. No one could explain it. But the odd part, he'd never seen that lake before. It wasn't near his house. He drove 4 hours to get there. Like something pulled him. Now go back to that dock. The one from the party. After the story faded from the news, a couple went there for photos. Instagram engagement shoot. They never posted them, because the photographer quit mid-session. He said the shadows were wrong, said the light bent funny, and the camera, it captured something extra. In every photo, in the background, just behind the couple's smiling faces, a blur, blue fabric, long hair, eyes, always the eyes. He deleted the files, quit photography the next day. And the couple, they split up a week later. No reason, no fight, just silence. And a lingering dream they both refused to describe. That's how it works. You brush up against it once, even briefly, and it never really lets go. People always expect horror to be loud, screams, blood, chaos. But real horror, it waits. It breathes on the back of your neck when nothing should be there. It's the mirror you don't trust, the water that feels too still, and the smile that wasn't yours. So, if your reflection ever lingers just a second too long, if you hear a splash in still water, if you see a girl at the end of a dock, staring with empty eyes, turn around. Don't ask questions. Don't look twice. And above all else, don't smile back. 3 states over. In North Carolina, a teenage girl live-streamed from her bedroom. It was late, past midnight. She had soft lights on lo-fi music in the background. The comments flowed like usual. Nothing strange. Just fans chatting, emoji song requests. Until someone noticed her closet door. It was open, not wide, just a sliver. A viewer commented, "Did that door just move?" She laughed it off. Said it's just the air. Old house. But people kept commenting. The shadow moved again. Someone's in there. She looked at the screen, paused, then turned to face the closet. Silence. She walked over, pulled the door wide open. Nothing inside. Just clothes. She smiled, played it cool, returned to her seat. But the viewer saw what she didn't. Behind the hanging shirts, a shape. A girl's face. Very still. Eyes too wide. No one saw the face again after that moment. Not live. Because the stream cut, static. And her account, deleted. No archive. No trace. Her parents filed a missing persons report 3 days later. Police entered her room. Closet empty. Except one thing. A puddle. Salt water. No explanation. And on the mirror above her desk, drawn in something slick and black, A perfect smile, long curved, almost childlike. But there were no fingerprints, no residue, just the lingering smell of brine. Since then, rumors have grown. Some say she's still alive, others say she streams from somewhere else now. Late at night, no sound, no voice, just a loop of ocean waves. And sometimes, if you look closely, her smile breaks. Just for a second, like she wants to scream, but can't. Remember what we said. This isn't just a story. It's a ripple. A virus passed not through blood, but awareness. The more you know, the closer it gets. So maybe stop watching. Or maybe you already went too far. Clara always said evil doesn't knock. It seeps quietly, like damp through the floorboards. That night, after the shooting, the docks were blocked off. Police tape, news vans, flashing lights that painted the water red and blue. But Clara wasn't there for the crime. She was looking for something else, something older than guns, older than grief. She moved like she knew exactly where to go, down the boardwalk, past the broken glass and bullet holes, to a small maintenance shack no one had touched in years. Inside, she found it, a wooden box, almost identical to the one in the boys' bedroom. But this one was darker, stained, with symbols carved so deep, the wood had cracked. Clara didn't open it, not yet. She just listened. Because from inside the box came a sound. Not a voice, not a whisper. A gurgle, wet, slow, like something drowning in reverse. She closed her eyes, and for a moment, she remembered. Her first time hearing that sound, years ago. Different town, different story, but the same box, same marks, same smell of brine and burnt paper. That box had disappeared, or so she thought, but here it was again. Different place, same hunger. Behind her, the wind picked up. The water below sloshed harder than it should have, and the air grew warm. Too warm, like the breath of something enormous, just beneath the surface. Clara turned around and saw them, 10 shadows, standing still at the edge of the dock, motionless, watching, each one the shape of someone shot earlier that night. Same clothes, same outline, but their faces were wrong, not just pale, hollow, as if something had scooped them out from the inside and left only a shell. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She whispered something, a name. Then, she placed the box gently into the water. And just like that, the shadows collapsed, like smoke, gone. And the box, it floated, not sank. It floated away, drifting into the dark, like it knew exactly where it was headed next. Maybe to another party, another teenager, another closet door, waiting to creak open. The evil never left. It just keeps moving, one dock at a time. They called it a tragedy. The news anchors wore their solemn faces. 10 injured, 1 critical, the community in shock. But Clara, she knew better. The headlines didn't mention the shadows, didn't mention the box, didn't mention the way the air refused to settle that night, even after the ambulances had left. That's the thing about stories like these. People only see what they're allowed to see. A party, a gun, chaos. But there's always more underneath. Weeks passed. The dock was cleaned up. The maintenance shack boarded shut. And the boat burned. No one could explain how it caught fire in the middle of the night. No one found no signs of forced entry. Just ashes. And the smell. Salt and sulfur. Like something crawled out of the sea and didn't go back. Clara returned one last time before leaving town. She stood at the edge of the dock, eyes fixed on the horizon. In her hand, a single page, torn from a journal, water-stained and crumbling. She read it silently, then let the wind take it. The page danced across the water, catching a beam of moonlight before vanishing into the black. She didn't cry. She never does. Clara's seen too much. She just whispered one last thing into the night. If you ever find the box, don't open it. And then she walked away from the dock. Away from the screams and the questions, back into the shadows, waiting for the next whisper, the next story, because evil doesn't die, it just reloads. And somewhere, in another town, another door just creaked open. Clara doesn't keep souvenirs. No tokens, no keepsakes. But she always remembers the names. That night, after she left the dock, the dreams returned, not hers. Someone else's. In the dream, she stood in a hallway. Endless. Rotting wallpaper. Lights flickering above. Each door she passed had a number. Each number was familiar. 7, 12, 19. They weren't just numbers. They were addresses, birthdays, body counts. She reached the final door, the handle cold, rusted. Her hand shook. When she opened it, she saw the party again. But this time, it wasn't just the boat. It was dozens, hundreds, dozens of people in different places. Different docks, different decades, all dancing, all smiling, all unaware of the box at their feet. Every time the music changed, another version of the box flickered into view. Sometimes a trunk, sometimes a suitcase, sometimes just a shadow in the shape of a rectangle, but it was always there, always humming, always waiting. In the dream, Clara screamed, but no one turned. They kept dancing, like puppets tied to strings pulled by an unseen hand. Then the gunfire started again. But this time it wasn't just bullets. It was whispers. Thousands of them, each one a name. She woke up gasping, cold sweat, the sound of the sea still in her ears. She grabbed her notebook, the old leather-bound one she never lets go of, and she wrote just 2 words. It's spreading. She doesn't know how long she sat there in the dark, but when she finally looked out the window, the fog had returned, thicker than ever. Clara isn't scared of ghosts. She's not afraid of monsters. But this was different. This wasn't haunting. This was possession. Not of people. Of places. Of moments in time. Corrupted memories that looped themselves into history, waiting to be triggered again. And she had just seen the next location. A photo on her desk. One she hadn't looked at in years. It was time to go back to where it all started. The next morning, Clara knew what she had to do. The photo on her desk wasn't just a memory, it was a map. A map that had been waiting for her, patiently, buried under piles of old notes and unfinished stories. It was a faded image of an old dock, cracked wood stretching out into the murky water, and in the distance, a dark shape hovered just beyond the horizon. The same shape that haunted her dreams. The same shape she had seen in the vision. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a boat. It was something worse. Something anchored in time, not just space. Clara didn't waste any time. She packed her things, grabbed her old leather jacket, and made her way to the nearest train station. The photo had shown a place she had visited once, long ago, but now, it felt like it was calling her back. The train ride was long, but it didn't matter. Her mind kept returning to that night, the faces, the screams, the gunfire. But the faces weren't just people. They were memories, both old and new, flashing in and out like broken film reels. The more she thought about it, the more she realized the pattern. The dock, the boat, the box, each place, each person, each moment. It wasn't random. It was a ritual. And Clara, she was a part of it now. When the train finally pulled into the station, Clara could feel it. The air was thick with something she couldn't quite explain. A pressure, a heaviness that seemed to hang over everything. The station was empty, not a single person in sight, just the sound of her footsteps echoing off the walls. She checked her phone, but there were no updates. Nothing. It was like the rest of the world had forgotten this place even existed. She followed the path to the docks, the same path from the photo. The fog had rolled in again, covering the ground in a dense, unyielding veil. With every step, it felt like she was moving closer to something darker. And then she saw it, the boat. The same boat from her dream, the one she had seen in the photo. It was there, anchored in the fog. But there was something else, something more sinister. The boat wasn't empty. It was full. Full of people. People she didn't recognize. And there, in the middle of it all, stood a figure. A man. A tall, thin figure dressed in black. He was watching her. Waiting. Clara knew it wasn't over. It had just begun. Clara didn't flinch. Her steps were steady as she walked toward the dock, even though her heart thudded against her ribs like it was trying to escape. The man on the boat didn't move, neither did the crowd behind him. They stood still, like mannequins, like they'd been waiting there for centuries. She reached the edge of the dock. Fog curled around her legs, soaking into her jeans. The smell of salt and rot was stronger now, mixed with something metallic. Blood maybe, or rust. The man finally raised his hand, not in greeting, more like a signal, and the crowd responded. Dozens of heads turned toward her in perfect unison. Blank stares. Vacant eyes, like their souls had been emptied out in something else was looking through them now. Clara's voice cracked as she tried to speak. "Who are you?" No answer. She stepped forward again, her boots creaking against the old wood. The fog parted just enough to reveal the edge of the boat. A long, thin plank extended toward her, a literal invitation. Every instinct screamed for her to run, to turn back, to leave this cursed dock and forget it ever happened. But Clara had never been good at listening to fear. She stepped onto the plank. It swayed beneath her weight. The sound of water slapping against the hull below echoed in her ears. With each step, she felt the air grow colder, denser. By the time she reached the boat, her breath came out in visible puffs. The man in black hadn't moved. His face was still hidden beneath the shadow of his hat. Clara stood in front of him, close enough to see the faint outline of his lips. "You followed it," he said quietly. "The echo. What is this place?" she whispered. He tilted his head. "A gate." "To where?" He smiled. But it wasn't warm. It was empty. "Depends on what you brought with you." Before Clara could respond, the boat jolted. Hard, like something massive had bumped into it from below. She nearly fell, grabbing the railing for support. The man turned, walking toward the center of the boat. The crowd parted for him, never blinking. Clara followed, because what else could she do? At the heart of the boat was a hatch, old ironbound, covered in strange carvings that pulsed faintly in the foggy light. He pointed at it. "This is where you decide." "Decide what?" "If the story ends, or begins again." Clara stared at the hatch. The iron seemed to breathe. Every carved line shimmered, pulsing like veins under skin. The air above it vibrated with something ancient, older than memory, older than language. Her throat was dry. "What's inside?" The man didn't answer. The others didn't move. Only the sound of the water, the distant screech of a gull, and the steady hum beneath her feet. The hatch creaked by itself. It opened an inch, then another. A light spilled out, but it wasn't bright. It was heavy, like gold melted with blood, like memories that didn't belong to her. And within the light came a whisper. But it wasn't in her ears. It was in her chest, inside her bones. Clara closed her eyes. She saw it. The party, the music, the laughter, the boy holding a drink in one hand and a pistol in the other. The flash, the scream, the chaos. And then, silence. She opened her eyes. She was back on the boat. The man was watching her. So were the others. "You saw it," he said. "It's still echoing." Clara stepped back. "This isn't real." "No," he said gently. "It's more than real." The hatch opened wider. She felt it pulling, not her body, her regrets, all the things she never said, all the people she'd lost, every sleepless night when she wondered if she was too late. The boat creaked. The dock behind her vanished into the fog. There was no way back now. Clara looked into the light, and it looked back. It showed her faces, names she didn't know, victims, witnesses, the guilty, the forgotten, and one boy, holding a gun, crying. She reached out. The man grabbed her wrist. "Once you touch it," he said, "you'll carry them, all of them." Clara didn't pull away. Her voice was quiet. Maybe that's what I came for. The boat groaned. The light swallowed everything, and Clara fell forward. Darkness, but not the ordinary kind. This was the kind of dark you feel before you wake up from a dream. A place where thoughts have no shape, only sensations. Cold that doesn't bite but presses in. And voices, thousands, maybe millions, whispering, humming, crying. Clara was falling, or flying, or floating. It was impossible to tell. Reality had lost its rules. There was no up, no down, just Clara and them. One voice stood out. A woman's. Her tone was like a lullaby sung through tears. I just wanted to go home. Clara tried to answer, but her mouth wouldn't open. Not out of fear, but because in this place, intention was louder than words, and Clara's intention was to listen. Faces began to appear from the fog. Some were young, some were old. All of them had eyes that had seen too much. A small child stepped forward, holding a broken doll. Her eyes were empty, but her smile was genuine. You're not like the others, she said. You want to know? Clara nodded, or maybe just felt like she nodded. The child pointed behind her, but you have to see all of it, even the parts you'll wish you hadn't. Clara turned around, and there it was. The party, playing again, but this time, from another angle. She saw the faces the news didn't show, the ones who didn't make it to safety, the ones who tried to help, the ones who bled, and the ones who didn't move again. She saw a man shielding his girlfriend, a woman cradling someone else's child, a young man screaming a name into silence. It all happened so fast, and yet so slowly. Clara didn't cry. She couldn't, because the emotion that came wasn't just sadness. It was fury. It was heartbreak. It was the sting of helplessness drilling deep into her spine. A voice echoed all around her. They're still here, Clara whispered in her thoughts. Why me? The answer came from every direction. Because you didn't look away. The fog began to shift, not away, but inward, pulling itself into shapes, stories, moments frozen in time. A boy staring at a birthday cake he never got to taste. A girl clutching a phone that had no signal. And somewhere, the soft echo of a party song still played. Like a ghost unaware, it no longer belonged to the living. Clara stood in the middle of it all, not just a witness, but an anchor. The only presence that remembered time still existed. The girl with the doll returned. Her eyes now held something new, not hope, but clarity. They never left, she said. They keep replaying it, over and over, because no one really listened. Clara's breath caught. What do they want? The little girl tilted her head. Not revenge, not even justice, just to be remembered, right? Not as headlines, not as statistics, but as people. Clara nodded slowly, and something shifted, not in the fog, but in her. A sense of duty, of weight, of responsibility that no one had asked her to carry, but she would carry it anyway. A hand touched her shoulder. Clara turned. It was the first boy she had seen in the vision. The one who had run, who had screamed for help, who had watched everything fall apart. He looked at her, not with fear, but with relief. You heard me, he said. Clara tried to speak, and this time, she could. Yes, she whispered. I did. The fog pulsed, like breath, like waves, and Clara felt herself being pulled again, not violently, but gently, as if the nightmare knew she had seen enough. The voices began to fade, but not disappear. They stayed with her, etched behind her eyelids, tattooed on the back of her thoughts. And just before the fog fully lifted, a single sentence carved itself into her mind. Tell them we mattered. The next moment, she was back in her apartment, sitting upright, heart pounding, TV still playing, now on some late-night infomercial. The lights were low, the windows fogged from her own breath, but something was different. Not outside, inside, because she couldn't unsee it now. Couldn't pretend it was just a dream, because dreams don't leave bruises on your soul. The clock ticked, Steady, normal, safe. But Clara knew better, because normal is just what we call the world when we choose not to look too closely. She walked to her desk, pulled out her journal, and began to write. Not everything. Some stories aren't meant for words, but enough to remember them. The names she never got, the faces burned into her memory, the silence that screamed louder than sirens. Outside, the night stretched on. Another hour passed, another day folded into shadows, and somewhere, that boat still sat at the dock, empty now, but not silent. Some say the echoes never really left, that if you walk too close to the water past midnight, you might hear laughter, music, a scream, maybe your own, and maybe, just maybe, if you listen closely, you'll hear them whisper, "We were here, we mattered, we still do." So now, I turn to you. Yes, you, still here with me, still wide awake, or maybe, drifting off. If this story stayed with you, if you felt something move beneath your skin, then maybe, like me, you're carrying it now too. That's good, because stories like these need to be carried, remembered, retold, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. If these quiet hours between dusk and dawn feel like home to you, then like the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment, tell me where you're watching from, and what time it is right now. It's always hauntingly beautiful to know we're all in this strange, sleepless world together, and maybe share it, not because it's scary, but because it's true. And for tonight, that's all. Blow out the candle, lock the door, and listen, because the dark still remembers, and it just might be whispering your name next. Good night, sleep carefully, and as always, this is Clara, signing off.